What's going on, everyone? Ver here. A few months back, I shared a really cool string of Instagram stories about how I make my own cold brew. Now, for some of you, I might know what you're thinking, some of you might not know. That Instagram story was inspired by a famous YouTuber named Graham Stephan, who makes his own iced coffee. For me, I used to not drink a lot of coffee. I used to just drink water and say, that's good, but then I discovered cold brew. I personally like cold brew because it's not as bitter and it has a lot more caffeine than your average cup of brewed coffee. And the number one reason why I make my own cold brew is because of this. I make my own cold brew, and this is why we were able to get a house, because I save money on coffee. And with that, let's get into the video. So the first thing I do is gather the materials. So for the materials, the first thing is obviously the coffee. So what I like to do is get whole bean coffee, specifically the Starbucks Veranda blend. Veranda blend is a blonde roast, and what that means is that it is light-bodied and mellow. I like blonde roasts because they're roasted lighter than, say, a dark roast. Not a lot of the caffeine has left the bean. When you're doing cold brew, the whole process of extracting, the coffee as well as the caffeine in the bean is much more than if you were to do it on a traditional drip brew coffee. The next thing you need is a 1 quart mason jar. So I got a bunch of these at Walmart, and I happen to get them for free because I follow this page on Instagram where it shows deals on, things you could get, whether it's like a coupon or something for free. A case of 12 of 1 quart jars at Walmart is about $8 to $9, and I got $10 back for it. So after you brew your coffee in the jar, you have to filter out the grounds. Something I use is a sifter filter, or like a sifter strainer. I got this one just at a Daiso, which it's like $1.50. And then the sifter, in addition to filtering out the grounds, you can use either a coffee filter or a cheesecloth. I prefer a cheesecloth because you can buy, a few yards of it on Amazon for less than $10. And you can also reuse them because you could throw them in the wash or just wash them, by hand. The last thing that I need is a grinder. You can use any standard grinder, like you can use manual ones, you could use a blade grinder. I specifically choose a burr grinder. This is the burr grinder I got. I just got it off of Amazon for, I believe, $30. Essentially what a burr grinder does, from what I've read, is instead of slashing up the beans with a blade, it crushes the beans to make them either coarse or fine. Specifically for cold brew, you want coarse grounds because when you're filtering out, you want them to be caught in the cheesecloth and the sifter. You don't want any sediment in your coffee. All right, so I just grabbed my phone. I'm gonna walk over here so I can show you exactly how I make my coffee. So the first thing I do with my beans is I have to measure out 3/4 cups. So I have this 1/4 cup measurement, and we put it in the grinder. You gotta plug it in. You just flip that on, put it on a coarse setting because we want coarse grounds. So once that's grounded up, you just have to put all the grounds in a 1 quart jar, mason jar. And the last step is just filling it up with water. So what I like to do is fill the water up just to this lip right here. Alright, so then the last thing, you can either stir it around or just flip it over a couple times to mix the grounds. And you just set it on the counter for 12 to 24 hours.
24 hours later.
I usually do 12 hours if it's on the counter, or 24 hours if it's in the fridge. Anywhere in between that, it's fine. Fortunately, I actually had one of these on the counter already brewing, so let's go ahead and filter this out. So as you can see, I have this setup where I have the sifter on top of an empty jar, and then I could just go over here and grab a clean cheesecloth, put it on top of the sifter like so. This will get the more micro grounds, and then the sifter will catch anything that pops through. And you just filter away. typically, the rendering of cold brew in a jar is just over 3/4. So you can choose to, fill it up to the top to dilute it a little bit. You can put it into a bigger container and do maybe a 1-to-1 ratio. I typically just fill it up to the top, or you don't even have to dilute it at all. When you dilute it, when you don't dilute it, it just has the most caffeine. All right, so we'll just have that sit for a little bit to get the remaining liquid out of these grounds, and then we could prepare our cold brew. Like that, we have our cold brew. I'm going to go ahead and dilute mine. All right, so after we filter out our coffee, we have our cold brew. And the final step after you've filtered out your coffee grounds for your cold brew is to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm if you haven't done so already. Just kidding. It's to actually just have some of your cold brew. I just drink it like so.
Ooh, that's smooth.
So there are definitely a variety of creamers you can choose from to put into your coffee that are out there. You can choose from vanilla, hazelnut, Snickers, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, toffee, pumpkin spice. Anyways, you have so many different choices. Whenever I do want creamer in my cold brew, however, I do have some here that I like to use. This one is non-GMO, organic, free-range, cage-free, vegan, kosher, gluten-free. Oh, just kidding. It's not gluten-free. Another option we have is vanilla. All creamers aside, I'm going to move these over here. This is the real deal right here. This is Eagle Brand's America's most trusted sweetened condensed milk. Now, if you put this in your coffee, you're not only going to get your caffeine kick, you're going to the moon. Now, what the is up with making your own coffee? Do you happen to know someone who goes to Starbucks or Coffee Bean or any coffee shop, once a day, maybe even multiple times a day? I used to be that kind of person. I used to go to Starbucks in college at least once a day, sometimes twice if I had a long day where I had an 8 a.m. class and then like an evening class or an evening seminar. The cost of coffee definitely builds up. You could get, this specific brand and size at Target, Ralph's, any local grocery store. I typically wait for them to go on sale. They have new coffee coming in and old coffee they need to sell, so they mark these down at about $7.99, and then after tax that's about $8.70. This one bag of coffee beans comes out to about 15 quarts of jars that I showed you earlier, which can serve about 60 cups of coffee. If you buy your own creamer as well, creamer can range anywhere from $3 to $5 or even more. I'm just gonna say my average creamer costs $3. Let's do some math here. This one 12-ounce bag produces about 15 quarts of cold brew coffee. Per quart, I can make about 6 cups of coffee at about 8 ounces to 9 ounces. That's an average cup. So that's 60 servings for this bag. And then for a creamer that has about 60 to 70 servings, that comes out to be about 5 cents per serving. If you add that all together, one serving of coffee costs about 19.5 cents. Let's just round it up to 20 cents and call that our 20-cent cold brew. I know some of you might have multiple cups of coffee per day, but honestly with cold brew, since there is so much more caffeine in 1 cup of cold brew, I'm able to function on 1 cup a day. Say that 20 cents that you put into your cold brew, you save about $6 instead of going to your coffee shop or Starbucks. Let's say you invest that $6 a day every single day for the next 55 years at an average of a 7% return, which is the historical average of the S&P 500 adjusted for inflation with dividends reinvested. At the end of 55 years, you are going to have $1,331,086.16 in future money. Ever watch that movie Idiocracy with the other Wilson where he told Dax Shepard's character, hey, if you show me to the time machine, I will put money into a savings account so that will compound and have a zillion dollars after X amount of years, and then that's how I pay you back? Well, that's what's happening here. I just made you a millionaire. And that is also the reason why we were able to buy a house, because we'll have $1.3 million in the future and we'll still own the house for free. With that said, thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this video, please hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, and notification bell. You can find me on Instagram. I post stories about my commute to work or food that I eat. If you want to get started on investing, I've posted some links in the description below to Robinhood and Webull, both commission-free trading platforms like every other investing platform. Webull is currently holding a promotion where if you deposit any amount of money, you can get a free stock valued up to $1,400. With that, thanks again for watching, and catch you next time.